and counting. Hi, Vivian. Welcome to the podcast. I'm so excited to have you here.
Thank you so much for having me.
So, Vivian, how did you become a viral sensation? How did that happen? I mean, what was the secret to your success?
Yeah, so that's a very generous phrase, viral sensation. I never set out to be that or even an influencer, creator, anything like that. I started my career on Wall Street. I obviously learned quite a bit of finance and personal finance from my mentor there. And when I left to go to the tech media world, all of my new colleagues, and I was desperate for new friendship, by the way, because I just left this analyst class that was a built-in friend group. I needed to make new friends at work. And they would ask like, oh, you came from Wall Street. That's weird. Like, what did you do? And I would explain. And the immediate follow-up question would be, can you help me rebalance my 401k? Or should we be buying our company stock options? And which health insurance plan did you pick? So instead of telling everybody one by one how to do that, I actually started creating content really just for my friends at work. And that way I could direct them to video 7 for this and video 15 for that. But as it turns out, the very first video I made, I put it up on TikTok. This was mid-pandemic, so people were really in need of this information, and it went viral. It got 3 million views, and by the end of the week, I had 100,000 followers. But I recognize that that's a very, very unique starting story.
What was the video? What was the video about, Vivian?
It was very simple. It wasn't that great of a video, to be honest with you. I basically just said, hi guys, like, this is my name. This is why I'm credible. I've seen a lot of really bad advice going around. Nobody who actually has ever worked in finance would ever encourage you to put your entire stimulus check into Bitcoin or buy Tesla options with it. Like, it doesn't make sense. I don't have a get-rich-quick scheme, but I can teach you about money because I've worked on Wall Street. I am a self-made millionaire. It's not that challenging. I can explain it to you. And that was the whole video. And I guess people appreciated how earnest and honest I was being about there not being a get-rich-quick scheme because turns out a lot of folks followed me.
So you're not marketing. You were never in marketing. You were always just in finance?
No. So I started my career as a trader at JP Morgan, but then I ended up working in digital media strategy sales at BuzzFeed. So not necessarily a marketing job, but more so ad sales.
So how does an ad salesperson become making these videos? Because you're doing all this editing and you're doing all this stuff. Do you do it all yourself or did you hire someone to help you?
Yeah, well, I definitely had to kind of learn as, build the plane as I was flying it. My very first video had very little editing on it because I didn't know how to do it. It was just me directly talking to a camera for 60 seconds. I put a title on it and that was it. As I obviously started to create more and more content, I was really lucky that, I had time. I would play around on the app. I would figure out how to edit my content in TikTok, but I didn't have that background going in. And I look back at some of the content I used to make and cringe because I'm like, the editing is so bad and the captions aren't the right size or you can barely read that. And I have all these critiques, but it was the best I could do at the time. And obviously, the more content I've made, the better I've gotten at it. And so the editing has become a little bit more exciting these days. I have sound effects and fun graphics on screen. And, it's something that you learn along the way. But I really didn't know how to do it. I think people just appreciated that I was being honest.
So where do you think that passion comes from, where you wanted to go out there and help people when it comes to personal finance and making money?
I think it came from a place of feeling frustrated that some of the coolest and smartest people in my life had no idea what they were doing. I always joke that among my girlfriends from school, I am the dumbest one. I have a friend who is a surgery resident. She's literally saving people's lives. I have a friend who is an attorney, quite a few attorneys actually. So they're obviously, reading crazy paperwork that's 800 pages long and able to pull out this one tiny important piece of information. I've got friends who are VC investors, folks that are consultants. Everybody is quote unquote smart. And for me to feel like across this population of quote unquote smart people, the fact that none of them have any personal finance knowledge is insane. My friend who can literally perform a surgery that saves someone's life, when I talk to her about opening up a retirement account, I see her eyes just start to glaze over. And I think that was a lot of my friends. And so I felt like, if I could educate just a handful of people, make everybody feel a little bit more confident about their money, like, why not?
So it was never a way for you to make money?
No. I transparently didn't think I was ever going to be able to make money from doing this because I loved my job. And I know very few people have the privilege of saying that, but my full-time job, the last year I was at my full-time job before leaving to take Your Rich BFF full-time, I made $625,000 from a W-2 day job. And I was really happy. That was a ton of money. I was, I want to say 26, 27 at the time. And that felt like a crazy amount of money to be that young of a person living in New York City. My life was awesome. I didn't really want to take that risk. I liked my job.
So it was just something you started doing during the pandemic to pass the time because you were bored, and now it's your career.
Yes.
I can't believe it. So out of all these videos, which video has been the most successful and has really resonated with people?
Yeah, I think it really depends on how you define success. The video that's gotten the most views, I'll be honest with you, is the video of what to do if you win the lottery. Which is so funny, right? Because like only a teeny tiny fraction of people on this planet will ever win the lottery. But everybody wants to know what you should do if you were to win. It's such an exciting like fantasy. In terms of the video that I consider to be the most successful in that it's just helped the most people, I would either say my video teaching people how to negotiate their medical bills because it saved so many people thousands of dollars, or the video where I break down exactly how to invest in a step-by-step format because so many people are so confused by it. And then when I explained it through an analogy of tote bags, suddenly everybody are like, oh, well, it's not that complicated. I can do this too. And it made me feel really good that I was able to take a concept that is so scary and foreign to so many people and make it something that was so fun and accessible.
Okay, so what is your best investing advice? So you're teaching people how to invest. How can you tell our listeners what's your top secret or easiest tip when it comes to investing?
Yeah, I would say that you have to think about investing like going to the grocery store. You have to pick the grocery store first. So that's like picking a brokerage that you want to be at. Then you have to pick your receptacle. So maybe you get a cart, maybe you get one of those little baskets. Maybe you have poor planning skills like me and you think you're only going in for one thing and suddenly you're carrying 8 things in your arms. Whatever your receptacle is, you have to pick a receptacle. And then you actually have to take the money in your pocket and buy groceries. This is a big mistake people do, is that they put cash into their investment accounts, but then they don't actually buy investments. They just put the cash in and they think I'm investing. No. You have to buy stuff in the same way that you're at the grocery store. And you can't just buy a whole, 18 different types of candy. That's not a healthy, balanced diet. The same thing for your portfolio. You can't just buy 1 or 2 things. You want it to be really, really diversified so that it can weather any downturns or anything like that. And so my big advice is I don't really buy single stock equities. I actually really encourage people to just buy index funds. It's so much easier. You get to buy hundreds of things at once by buying one thing. Think of it as a multi-pack, and it's just a really simple way to get started without too much legwork and without it getting too confusing.
Okay, a lot of us don't have a lot of money. So what do you tell the person who's living paycheck to paycheck or Gen Z person who doesn't have tons of money? What is your best advice there when it comes to investing?
Yeah, so we're lucky that we are not living in our parents' generation or our grandparents' generation. These days, you don't need a lot of money to get started investing. You can start with $1, $5, $10, because we are able to access something called fractional shares. So if you think about a share, it is a teeny tiny sliver of an entire corporation's pie. So we'll use one that's really easy to think about is Apple. Okay, so everybody knows what Apple does. When you buy a share of Apple, you are buying a teeny weeny fraction of that company. And Apple stock right now, let's see, what's it trading at? $195.84 at this very moment as we're recording this. Well, a lot of people don't have $195
No, they don't.
to spend on a single share of Apple. But you can actually buy a fraction of that sliver and you can put in however much money you'd like and buy a specific fraction of that share. And that way, even if you only have $10, you can buy Apple. And that is just a really cool concept that's been introduced in recent years that allows anybody at any price point to get involved with investing.
That's a great tip. I totally forgot about fractional shares. I'm glad that you shared that today. I forgot about that. So what do you think is the thing that keeps people from saving money and investing and building wealth? I mean, what are some reasons? Can you give me like 2 or 3 things that maybe people do that keeps them from having the life they really want?
Yeah, I think first and foremost, like, I don't even want to blame what people are doing. I want to just kind of take a second to blame kind of the narrative that society has spun. We love to say things like, don't buy the avocado toast, skip the morning latte, you'll be better off. And while that is true, I think we place a huge emphasis on scrimping and saving, when in reality, you can't budget your way out of a deficit, and you can't budget your way out of a paycheck to paycheck situation. It is just as, if not more important, to increase your income as it is to be a frugal spender. So the best advice I'd ever gotten was, you can only save as much as you earn, but you can always earn more money. It is very, very hard to cut out $5,000 of discretionary expenses. Say goodbye to Netflix. Say goodbye to getting dinner with your girlfriends. You are not getting drinks Thursdays nights. You are not getting new shoes. You get nothing that makes you happy. Do you know how easy it is to ask for a $5,000 raise? People get $5,000 raises regularly. People get raises more than that regularly. And if you actually think about it, if you spent as much time trying to increase your salary every year as you do thinking about how to cut down, you'd probably be way better off, and your life would still be a lot more enjoyable. So I would say, 1, people don't focus enough on maximizing income. 2, I would say a big issue that we're having these days is the pop culture hype around investing. With things like the GameStops and AMCs and Tesla calls and cryptocurrency. Like, it's really exciting to get caught up in that whirlwind. But we have to remember, for every single person who hits it big with some random cryptocurrency, every dollar that they made, somebody else had to lose. That money didn't just come out of thin air. And so we don't hear about the people who lost everything. We don't. And so it may seem very sexy to invest in meme stocks or a volatile cryptocurrency because it seems like a get-rich-quick scheme. It doesn't pay off for the vast majority of people. In fact, investing should be like watching grass grow. It is super boring. And that's kind of the point, because you need time to have your money work hard for you. So I always say, don't try to cherry pick the perfect investment. You can't do it, because I watched hedge funds blow up left, right, and center because they couldn't do it. And they had billions of dollars of technology and analysts and everything at their fingertips, and they still couldn't get it right. We as retail investors are not going to be able to do that. Just invest in index funds, or if you don't even know what you're doing, you can have services that help you, which moves on to phase 3 of why I think things aren't happening, is people get paralysis by analysis. They want the best investment account. They want the best brokerage. They want blah, 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 blah. They want the best. They're not willing to settle for second best. And sometimes we have to remember, done is better than perfect. People really get in their own heads and they're like, investing is so hard, I can't do it, I don't want to do it. But what I say to combat that is, if you have no idea what you're doing, you are too scared to invest on your own, you think you need somebody to hold your hand, don't go out there and pay some financial advisor 1%, 100 basis points of your assets to manage your money for you. Just go to a robo-advisor. A robo-advisor is going to essentially have you take a quick quiz about your money goals, how much you have, how much you make, what you want to do in retirement, how old you want to be, do you have a family, where do you live, every question under the sun. And then it's going to compute, boop, 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 and then spit out a well-diversified, risk-appropriate investment strategy for you. And it's personalized. So you're essentially getting the benefit of having somebody help you without having to pay a fee that's nearly as high. Robo-advisors typically only charge 0.25%, which is a lot more manageable than a human advisor. So if you don't know how to invest, just lean on a robo-advisor.
I think that's great advice about the robo-advisors. So how did you become this master? I know you were on Wall Street, but did your parents always talk about money and investing? I mean, how did this happen that you became so good at it?
Yeah, not at all. My parents were not big money people. We grew up, I would say when I was younger, probably like lower middle class. And then by the time I was in high school, headed off to college, I would say we probably, shifted a little bit closer to upper middle class. But my parents have never been like ultra wealthy or anything like that. They've instilled in me some really amazing money habits, and that I'm very frugal. I am a good budgeter. I'm a good saver, but we never talked about investing. And for my family, it felt like something that rich people did, not something that we did. And it wasn't until I met my first mentor on Wall Street. She was the only other woman, only other Asian person. And she took me under her wing and told me about all of the mistakes that she made in her 20s and how she was spending the money she was making as fast as she could make it, and that she didn't want me to do that. And she taught me all of these skills. And I felt so grateful to have my own, we'll call it rich mom, poor mom moment. And my rich mom was teaching me, all the things that she had wished she had known. And I was very lucky to set myself up for success in a way that most people don't get a mentor like that. And so I think part of it is luck.
And then you've been having a lot of luck. You got the luck. I mean, I'm saying there's a lot of people making TikTok videos, go viral and then make it into a career and all of this. So you've been really lucky and blessed when it comes to your success. You mentioned negotiating medical bills, right? Yep. What was the big tip from that? I'm just curious.
I think when people get medical bills and they see the number and they're like, pay this bill, you just assume that's that. And it's not. You can negotiate everything. What people don't realize is that 80% of medical bills actually have errors on them. 80. Imagine a passing grade being 20%. That is not good enough for me. So what I typically do is I tell people you need to call back and ask for an itemized receipt. You have no idea the number of random x-rays that have fallen off of my bills because I asked for an itemized receipt. And I don't even think people do it maliciously, but when practitioners and people who are working the administrative office of these medical facilities are churning through patients every single day, like, it's not that hard to add somebody else's procedure onto my bill, and I'm not going to pay that willy-nilly. So I always ask for an itemized receipt. I then go check it against Healthcare Blue Book to make sure that what they're charging me is within the realm of reality. I'm not paying $1 quadrillion because you gave me, 4 hospital-grade Advil for something, whatever. And then I always ask if there are any waivers, relief plans, vouchers, anything that would help make it less expensive. And then I go and say, I'd actually really like to pay this bill in its entirety in cash. Would you be able to offer me any sort of a discount to do that? Because they want to get paid too. They don't want you to just string them along. And you can get a lot off of your bill. Not to mention, if you actually make, depending on where you live, a certain multiple above the poverty line, if you go to a nonprofit, things like a hospital, many places have charity care, meaning you will owe nothing. And people don't know that. And I actually had a young woman come up to me during one of my tour stops, and she, had my book in her hands, and she said, I took your advice and I negotiated my medical bill as $5,000. And because of my financial situation, they waived the entire thing. I just want to let you know you changed my life.
Oh, yeah.
She was like, I was never going to be able to pay that off. And she started crying, and I started crying, because to feel like I can sit at home in my sweatpants and make like some silly 60-second video to then change somebody's life or improve her financial station so much is like, it's very humbling.
Oh, it would have to be. I think, like, right there, I'm like, I'm going to go do that. What you just suggested.
Yeah.
I actually have a hospital bill right now, and I'm like, I'm going to go do that. I didn't realize I could do that. And I think a lot of people don't. I mean, that's great advice.
Wow.
So with your book, Rich as AF, I guess.
Rich AF, we are keeping it PG. Rich
AF is changing your mindset, right? So what is that mindset that a person needs to get into in order to achieve wealth and success?
Yeah, I think, so my book, Rich AF, The Winning Money Mindset That'll Change Your Life, it essentially highlights a lot of behaviors and principles that rich people abide by that allow them to essentially go through life while getting the most out of it. And the things that very few of us regular people are doing. So that is negotiation, negotiating your bills, making sure that you are getting those late fees waived, what have you. You can do that. On top of that, I think a lot of us are born with a scarcity mindset. And I, for one, certainly was. My parents are Chinese immigrants. I was, the first person to go to college in the US, and they always acted like the other shoe was about to drop. It was always about to be a rainy day. And I am lucky in that I was born in this country. I'm not here to survive. I'm here to thrive. There's an entitlement. What are you going to do? Like, deport me? I'm a US citizen. There's nothing you can do. And so I live my life in a way that feels abundant. And I had to kind of retrain my brain on this. Like, I am capable. I am smart. I am the most talented person in the room. And so if I want to pass on something, I can, because there will be more opportunities down the road. And I certainly did not feel that way when I was going into college. I was saying yes to everything and I was burning myself out. But like, it's important for us to realize that we are our most valuable assets and that we should always be able to bet on ourselves. I think another amazing tip is that like, rich people are apex predators. They do not compete with each other. They are collaborative. They scratch each other's backs because they know that when you are friends with other rich people, that you will be able to call in favors. And so I just think reframing how you think about your career and your money through a lens of a rich person mindset will really help people take advantage of the resources that are already existent in their lives, but also find new opportunities where they weren't looking for them before.
So right now, have you found any new opportunities since, here you're in this mindset. I'm just curious, have you recently found any new opportunities that maybe you didn't think were out there for you personally?
Absolutely. Anybody who knows me knows how much I love watching TV. I am a TV fiend. And I never thought that like TV was a space that I would be able to get into just because I'm not an actress. I'm not, I don't do any of those things. But recently, I've been toiling with the idea of coming up with a few TV shows, being the executive producer of them. And because of what I've been able to do with my digital brand and the content I make of myself, essentially teeny tiny short videos, I've been, given the opportunity to have some really incredible conversations about potentially getting onto the medium-sized screen.
That's pretty awesome.
Yeah.
And, that's that mindset that you believe in yourself, right?
Yeah.
And you believe you can do more. I think a lot of people get stuck where you're at, right? And they wouldn't go past doing the TikTok videos, right? They may not even write the book.
Right.
They just kind of get, oh, this is what I do. And they don't even think they can even go beyond that. And what causes a person, what do you think has to shift in our minds so that we can think beyond that?
Yeah, I think we need to speak to ourselves without so many like limiting words. When people say things like, I'm a TikToker, like I find that to be a limiting phrase. Well, do you want to eventually have a podcast? Do you want to eventually have a book? Do you want to eventually have a TV show? I wouldn't call myself a TikToker then. I would call myself, a business person, a CEO, a founder. And changing the language that you use with yourself every single day is really important. I know so many people who are such amazing friends and have said the most horrible, horrific things to themselves in the mirror. Like, you are ugly, you are stupid, you are incapable. If you would never say it to your best friend, don't say it to yourself. And that's good. I think that's a really, really good tip, because many of us have limiting beliefs based on things that we've said about ourselves and what we've heard, but we really need to like surround ourselves with positivity, but also recognize that if you're not happy with something in your life, you have the power to change it. If you wake up every single day and do the same thing, it would be crazy to expect something to change. If you wake up and do something different is going to happen. And so I think we need to be willing to take those risks. And I always tell people, I'm on my third do-over. People always think it's too late to become this, too late to do that. Like, I am on my third do-over. I worked in finance, I worked in media, and now I work for myself. And I think in this lifetime, we are allowed to have as many do-overs as we want.
So when you quit the first do-over, so when you were in finance, was that one easy? Because did you have the other job before you started the media job at BuzzFeed, or did you first go without a job for a little while?
Yeah, so I had the BuzzFeed job lined up, but it was not easy to quit because I came from an immigrant Chinese home where, I was a really good student. I went to the University of Chicago, which is well known to be an economics school, huge feeder for Wall Street jobs. And when I graduated from U Chicago with honors, got the JP Morgan job that everybody wanted, it felt like it was like the culmination of everything I had done. And it was my parents' greatest joy. Like, they were so happy about my success. But when I left, all they knew about BuzzFeed was that it was a place where you could find quizzes, and they thought I was going to go and write quizzes. And they were like, you're throwing away everything you've worked for to go write quizzes. And I'm like, well, I'm not even working on that team, but thank you. And they were not supportive. And
I'm sure they weren't, because that's like something you brag about. My kid's on Wall Street, right? Yeah. And doing all that stuff. I mean, that's a bragging rights thing. BuzzFeed, doing media, people don't even know what that is, right?
Exactly. And like, I think for them, it was very scary because they didn't take those types of risks in their career because they were immigrants and they didn't feel like they had the ability to do that. But I didn't talk to my parents for 3 months after that happened because I was like so pissed that they couldn't appreciate my perspective and how much happier and better off I was going to be. We eventually got back on speaking terms. And ultimately, at my BuzzFeed job that no one thought was a good job, I ended up making 6 times as much as I was making on Wall Street. And so I laugh, but it ended up being the right move. I just had to take a small step back to be able to take that leap forward. But they weren't supportive. And when I left BuzzFeed full-time to go and take Your Rich BFF full-time, I was so scared to have that experience again. I was like, oh, good. Am I not going to talk to my parents for 3 more months? But this go around, I don't know what had happened. I don't know who these people are, who swapped out my parents. They're aliens now, I guess. But they were like, well, we've seen you do it once. You know best. Just, try to be smart with your money because you're not going to be able to count on a paycheck. And I was like, this conversation went a lot better than I anticipated, and I didn't know what to say to them, but they were actually quite supportive of me taking Your Rich BFF full time. So, even old parents can learn new tricks.
Well, and I think you proved to them to trust you because you made such good choices, right? Yeah. And you've been successful, and they know you're a hard worker. I mean, you'd have to be a hard worker. How often are you making posts? How often do you post? Every day. Oh, so how many hours a day are you working? I'm just curious.
I mean, I'm working more than I did at BuzzFeed. I'm probably working the same number of hours as I was working on Wall Street, except I work for me now, so I'm quite a bit more motivated and I can work on my own schedule. But I work hard. I really do.
So how many people are on your team right now?
I have an interesting looking team in that, as a creator, I have an agent, I have management, I have an attorney, a publicist, business manager, and each of them kind of has their own team to support me. But I have one full-time employee, one editor who helps with the newsletter, and then it's me.
So when it comes to creating, that's you, right?
That's me.
And maybe an assistant do it and all. I think I've seen the assistant in the videos, right? So you have an assistant, but that was in New York. So do they go to Miami with you, the assistant, or do they stay?
Oh, we're hybrid. So when I'm in New York, we work together. When I'm somewhere else, we just call each other a lot. And I'm very lucky that she is so sharp, so smart, and just a really, really huge value add. There are very few people that I trust like I trust her.
Oh, that's awesome. Well, you're again, we just keep saying you're lucky. Were you born on a year that was lucky? I mean, is there some sign going on there?
I will be honest in that I make my own luck in that the first assistant I hired, it didn't end up working out. We parted ways after a month and a half. And that was an absolute gut punch because I had to take time to onboard them. It was, it wasn't a good fit. And so I was very, very, I would say, gun shy about hiring again. So I had a really long interview process with my current full-time employee. And after multiple interviews, like testing and like figuring out if we liked each other, I was like, okay, I have to take a leap now. And it's been great. We've been together now for 8 months and hopefully another 8 years to come.
Yeah, that's great. And also, when you're talking about all these things and you're creating them, I was just curious, how do you decide what you're going to make?
Yeah, it's a great question. I follow the news cycle very, very closely. And then I also just have content that like my own girlfriends are texting me about. And I'm like, well, if my friends are asking, I bet other people want to know too. So it's really just crowdsourcing information from the BFFs who leave comments on my content, my own personal friends, and following the news cycle.
Okay. And now what is your favorite top 3 money tips?
Ooh, okay. Top 3 money tips. 1, get a high yield savings account. It is a regular savings account, except you earn more interest. There's absolutely no reason why you should not be earning more interest on the money sitting around, because why get less when you can get more? 2, I would say call your credit card company every 6 to 12 months, or you can do it digitally now in some of those apps, and request a credit limit increase. What this essentially does, it increases the amount of credit you have access to, and I encourage you to then continue spending the same way and paying off that credit card bill in full and on time every single month. This will actually reduce your credit utilization percentage and boost your credit score. And then last, I would say, talk to your friends about money. I know it's been told to be tacky and taboo and rude, but I promise you, rich people are teeing off at Whole3, smoking a cigar and talking about their portfolios, their real estate investments, what they're doing with their money. There's no reason that 2 young women who are trying to move to the city, trying to find an apartment that's affordable, trying to find better jobs and get paid more shouldn't be talking about their money too.
And what advice would you give someone who would like to become an influencer? I'm just sitting here thinking all this. I was like, people are probably wondering this. What would you tell them?
I would tell them that you have to really enjoy what content you're making, because if I was only in it for the cash grab, I would have quit a long time ago. It's like real. I just trust me on this one. Like, if you are going into it thinking like, oh, there's a big bag at the end of the rainbow, for many people, like that doesn't happen quickly or maybe ever. If you are creating content, like do it for the love of the game, but also like try to make your content special. Like, what makes you special? The things that make us stand out are superpowers. There are 8,000 different beauty influencers, but your favorite one does something special. Think about what that is. There are a ton of other finance influencers, but I'm the only one who actually brings in my personal life and talks about being a woman and what I spend on manicures and things like that. And I think that's really helped me reach an audience that otherwise like wouldn't be into money or finance, content. You got to make it fun. You got to make it accessible, and you got to make it special.
Okay, I'm going to ask a personal question. You say you're personal and share your life. I saw the wedding ring. You're getting married. So did you do it on a budget, or did you really splurge when it came to your wedding plans?
Yeah, so initially we had thoughts about doing it on a pretty, I would say, relatively decent budget. We've completely blown past it. I'm going to be so real here. I didn't realize how emotional wedding planning was going to be. I thought that it was going to be really easy because I am a finance person and my fiance is a finance person, and we were both going to be like, no, and we don't need this. We don't need this. Turns out, when it's about the, and I quote, most important day of your life, you start to lose your mind, and flowers are expensive, bands are expensive, feeding everyone is expensive. We really ended up splurging on this wedding, but in the way I see it, my hope is I get to do it once and do it right.
So do you have any hacks or advice for anyone who's planning a wedding?
Yeah, I would say depending on, where you'd want to actually get married, there are going to be certain destinations that are a lot more expensive, whereas some are going to be a lot more off the beaten path, and those are going to be so much more affordable. I say this as someone who is getting married in Lake Como, possibly one of the most expensive destinations to get married in. If we had looked at some areas that were a little bit more, off the beaten path, like whether that be Puglia or even areas like a little bit further out in Tuscany, smaller towns, it certainly would have been cheaper. I'd also recommend that when you are planning your wedding to get a new travel credit card, open up a new travel credit card and put any expenses that can be put on a credit card on that credit card and then pay it off in time in full. But things like your dress, tuxedo, cake, invitations, what have you. The reason I say this is because a lot of these travel credit cards have welcome offers where you need to spend a certain amount of money within the first 3 or 6 months. If you do, you get a really large lump sum number of points, which you can then actually spend to get your fancy lay flat flight for your honeymoon or pay for the hotels or something like that. And it just helps to kind of eliminate some of those costs that aren't the wedding itself, but the honeymoon.
I didn't even think about that. That's a great tip about doing that to get the flights for the honeymoon covered by using that. That's really good. I love that. So another question I always ask people, Vivian, is what does living richer mean to you?
Living richer to me means being able to dictate your own time and buy it back when you need to. I think when we think of richer, we oftentimes are envisioning the designer bag and the lime green Lambo and the golden toilet. But being richer is actually being able to not have money be a limiting factor. So for me, that means being able to race home a DoorDash dinner because I don't have time to make food for myself and I want to be able to keep doing a couple of emails. It means being able to spend money on a personal trainer because I felt like I haven't prioritized my personal physical health over the past few months. And to me, health is really important. It means being able to give good gifts and spend your money where your values lie to really get the most out of life. And it doesn't need to be this excessive show. It really is what makes you happy and what lets you spend time with the people doing the things that you care about most.
Well, I really like that a lot, Vivian. And I love everything that you're doing. And just like you said, you're helping so many people. I'm sure when you started, you had no idea that you would impact millions of people and change their lives. People that maybe never even thought about money or maybe thought that wasn't for them, Definitely changed their minds and made it for the better. And I honor you for doing that. I think that's a huge thing. And for being so brave and going out and putting yourself out there every day, because it's not easy to put yourself out there because I'm sure there's haters too. I always fear it. So I admire you so much because I always have such a fear of it. And I want to tell all of you, go follow Vivian if you're not already and go out and get her book, Rich AF, The Winning Money Mindset That'll Change Your Life. You can get a copy of the book at richaf.me. Yes, I made the URL a manifestation. And you can find me across social media as your Rich BFF. Okay, everybody, you got that. And if you don't, you can always just rewind it back and play it again. And again, I'm reminding all of you to live richer.